This is Abnormal Entertainment.
Hey everybody, this is Daniel Garza, and welcome to another episode of Put It Together. I'd like to start, as usual, thanking my producer, Mr. Kevin Moyers, for all his help and support. Thank you, sir. Inviting everybody to check us out at abnormalentertainment.com, where you can check all of the shows on the network. Inviting you also to check me out at Little Mexican Productions on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube, where you can find everything that I'm up to, pictures, photos, videos, all the crazy things that I do. So go check it out. If you'd like to, also check out my new show, Zodiacs and Candles, on Facebook Live every other Monday. So check out the schedule. You can find us on Facebook also at Zodiacs and Candles, and check out the new episodes. I'm going to go and get started saying hi to my guest this morning, Daisi Joe. Good morning. How are you doing?
Good morning. How are you?
I'm doing well. How is your Monday starting?
Well, it's sunny. It's Los Angeles. It's sunny. I'm having my coffee, and we're in. First, let's start with we're in LA, so it's kind of like the best place to be. It can't start off that bad.
Right.
The weather's good. The overall lifestyle is good. So you have coffee everywhere. So I'm doing great for Monday.
That's awesome. Daisi Joe and I met in passing. We were both part of a documentary, which I got the email for the documentary and I haven't seen it yet. I haven't had a chance to sit down and watch it.
No. Oh, really? So it's live? Because I didn't get an email. I have to look into that.
Okay. I'll check my emails, and I'm pretty sure it's the link to it. So I will email that over to you. I'll forward it to you.
Okay, cool.
But I think it is the complete version. I'm not sure. But we'll talk about details about that in a minute. But we met in passing, and the gentleman, I forgot his name right now at the moment.
Brian, right?
Brian.
Yes.
Brian, I was there before you were. My part was before your part. And he was like, oh, there's a young lady coming in. Daisi Joe, you've got to meet her. She would be awesome for your show. And I was like, okay. And usually when people do that, I'm kind of thinking,
Yeah, I know. I totally know what you mean.
I always refer to like when white people tell me that they found a really great Mexican restaurant. And I'm like,
my God.
I'm like,
yeah. No, I totally know what you mean. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but you walked in, and let me just say this. You looked gorgeous that day. I was like, because he said,
thank you.
And I was like, wow, she's so pretty. Like, she's totally model. Because again, people say, oh, this girl looks like a model. You're like,
yeah. Especially in LA. You're like, yeah.
We're all models, and we're all producers, and we're all actors.
We're all doing something, right?
But yeah, you walked in and you were stunning, and then we really didn't talk much. We just kind of exchanged cards.
Yeah.
So I'm going to be listening to your story with as much attention as my listeners are, I hope. So I won't take up more of the time. Let's get started. So tell us, Daisi Joe, how do you put it together?
Oh gosh. That's like such an open-ended and loaded question. I don't even know where to start. So I guess I can just pick it up and start where we met and then work backwards, I guess. So Brian was doing a documentary about alcoholism. And no, let me just clear this up before, because you know how rumors spread. I've never been an alcoholic and never had a substance abuse problem or anything like that. But somehow we got connected online, and in the email correspondence, I said, well, alcoholism is a big issue in the modeling industry, and I have a lot of secondhand experience amongst my peers, and I'm also qualified to speak on these topics. And so I would be willing to participate under those contexts. And so he was really excited about it. And we actually ended up shooting. I actually did a shoot for them about a month or so earlier. And then Brian, when I met you, Brian had emailed me and said, hey, we need to reshoot your interview again. And are you available this Saturday, or when are you available? And so I said, sure. And that's how we met at his place, and we were reshooting my interview that we had already shot like a month earlier. And so I started off in the modeling and pageant industry. I started modeling when I was about 12 years old, and 12 or 13. 13, I guess, is a better, I think 12 is when I really decided that's what I wanted to do. And I did the standard industry agency thing where I was in New York City. I worked through agencies. That's how the industry typically operates. And I've always been very entrepreneurial. I come from an entrepreneurial family and an entrepreneurial background, but I wasn't as aware of that in the moment when I was doing this. But I would kind of spearhead my own marketing campaigns. I guess when I was like 12, 13, 14, 15. And this time you have to remember this is like in the 90s. And so there wasn't digital printing and digital retouching was just becoming a thing. And I got my hands on Photoshop, and I started retouching my own pictures because agencies would send you to retouchers. Retouchers would charge you out of an arm and a leg, and then you'd have to go to the printer. You'd make a negative of the print that had been airbrushed, and then make another print so that it looked real. And that is very expensive. You could easily spend $100 on one 9x12 print.
Wow.
Yeah, the portfolios were legitimately very expensive back then. And so I got my hands on a Photoshop, for the Photoshop program, and I taught myself, and then somebody gave me a Photoshop Bible, and I taught myself how to Photoshop at about 17, 18 years old. And then, I would just take the file to the printer, and I wasn't telling my agency I was doing this. And then I started experimenting with making my own comp cards. So I bought a large format printer, that could print 9x12 and could print cardstock, because you would cycle through 100 and 150 comp cards so fast. So you could easily, if you were going to 3 or 4 castings a day or go-sees a day, you could run out of comp cards in a month. So your monthly expense is like $100, $150 just for comp cards. And every time you'd make new comp cards, you had to put new photos. So whether those were legitimate tear sheets or just test shoots, your monthly expenses for modeling are very steep.
Wow.
And that's at every level. So if you're a newbie, you're definitely spending money on marketing. If you are, in intermediate, a working model, as we call them, then you're definitely spending money on marketing. And if you're a pro, you're still spending a lot of money on marketing. So I got a large 9x12 or 13x17 large format printer, and I would print out my own portfolio pictures, and I would buy cardstock for comp cards and print out my own comp cards, 1 photo on the front and 4 or 5 photos on the back with your measurements and stats and so forth. And I would, in between go-sees from my agency, I bought like an industry directory. I think it was called like the Madison Avenue Handbook. That was really popular back then. It was like an industry B2B book, and the brands and manufacturers and everyone would pay to be listed in that book. And I bought one for like $60 or something, and then I would go to every showroom in New York City, and you wouldn't know where they are off the street because they're not street level. They're in big, commercial buildings, and I would call ahead, find out if they actually saw models directly. A lot of them did, and when I could go, or how I would get them my comp card, or how they would see a model or accept marketing material from a model. And I would go do this like in between my bookings and in between my actual agency auditions and stuff, and market myself. And then when I could establish my own website, at some point I did that, and it was very early before you had to have an online portfolio, still like in the 90s, I think, and the early 2000s. And then I just kept doing out of the box entrepreneurial things. that now I realize they were very entrepreneurial. At that time, I was just making money and just thinking of creative ways to differentiate myself from other people. I really wasn't thinking about it much as business or marketing. I was just doing whatever it took. I guess it's the amateur or teenage way of hustling,
Is that where the modelpreneur title comes from?
That didn't come till much later. So in that time, I'll never forget, around 98 or 97, I got my first email address, right? And it was, and I'll never forget the reaction from when I would go into an audition or a casting or go see. They're all kind of interchangeable terms. And I would say, oh, I have an email. And I'd put my email next to my phone number, and it was modelpotential@msn.com or modelpotential@hotmail.com. And everyone was just like, you have an email? Like, what do it was just a thing. And like people would pick on me. You have an email, or Miss Fancy. So, and then I went through that phase with like having a website, and then the modelpreneur thing didn't come till much, much later. I mean, I would say maybe in the last like 7 or 8 years, where I really started to think about what I was doing or the patterns that I'd always been doing. And I would say in the last 10 years since the entrepreneurial boom or movement has kind of taken space in our culture, I didn't think about it as such at all. I just thought that I was doing what was necessary within my industry to do. And actually, I wasn't very much supported by my peers or people in the industry, by some of my creative self-promotion or marketing. And so I just looked at people that had already made it to the top. And I looked at what they were doing, at the very top of my industry. And I thought, well, how do you duplicate that down the line? I may never be at the level of like Naomi Campbell or Tyra Banks or Cindy Crawford, but that doesn't mean that I don't have a following. And at that time, it was the beginning of MySpace, and I was very popular on MySpace. And so I knew that I had a following, and I knew that I could monetize that. And even before monetization was a term that people use in their everyday language. And, but it wasn't very well received because people didn't understand, people thought that in order to be successful as talent, you had to go through the proper courses of, an agency, a manager, a casting director, and you had to be accepted and approved in order to have a proper career. And I never thought about it that way. So it wasn't until like the last like 5 or 6 years or 7 years or so that I actually decided to like, oh, well, you have mompreneurs, you have artistpreneurs, and well, I'm a modelpreneur, and it just became a thing.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, I think I'm 47 now, and I think back to when I was a kid, and my dad was very much into, hey, let's go do this because it's extra money. And my mom was very hardworking, and they were the kind of people that woke up at 4 o'clock in the morning, go to work, and they worked all day. I think you kind of learn, because you mentioned your family's very entrepreneurial. You learn that without them having to teach you. Does that make sense?
Yes, you do. You pick it up. You do.
And that is so cool to find out, because you look way younger than I am. I never ask a lady her age, but you look way younger than I am. So I think that for somebody your age, it's so refreshing to see that you took all those nurturing lessons that were around you, and you said, without even thinking about it, you were like, oh, I'm just going to do this for myself. If nobody else is going to do it, I'm going to do it, which I think is missing in a lot of young people today. But that's just my old cranky voice saying, kids, get to work.
Yeah, it's very true. Yeah.
But do
Go ahead.
see a difference? Like, and I'm going to let you boost your ego a little bit, but do you see the difference between the way that you work and other people your age work?
So this has been a hard realization for me. I've had a very difficult time with this, I think, on a personal level. And also, I think it's kind of affected my affected me professionally as well. In some ways, I grew up with a very different in a very different background, and not the same. It wasn't very consistent or stable. Although I have an entrepreneurial family, and on my mom's side, they were very successful, but I had a lot of different exposure, but I also had a bubble, and so I thought for a really long time that, well, why wouldn't people think like that? Or doesn't everybody know that, and that the real world works like this, and that real business doesn't work how people at the top are saying it works? They're saying that it works this way, at the very top after they've already made it there, but it's not how it works when you're trying to get there. And so I was never very relatable, in my social groups. And that also, I think, affected me professionally, because I just always thought out the box, always kind of did my own thing. And that wasn't always well received or appreciated. So now when I hear people talk about something they want to do or being successful, or I think to myself, well, I can be a very good gauge of those that I know we're going to maybe have a misunderstanding of how it works, but are going to figure it out and make it through, and those that aren't. But I can be rather cynical about it and judgmental about it. And that's not something I'm particularly proud of. I wish I admire people that have like an immense amount of empathy and patience, and they're nurturing. And I'm not. I'm just like, damn, they don't get it. Well, screw them. They're, I'm like, it's very judgy. I am very, very judgy, and it's not something I'm particularly proud of, but I accept it. I've always been that way, and I accept that I am that. And I do try to practice, being better. And, I do try to practice, and when I fail at practicing, which is often, I try to make up for it in other ways, which is, I guess if I were to be a parent, I've heard this term, you'd be a teaching parent. So I guess I try to be a teaching peer, or a teaching mentor. So instead of lecturing down, it's like, okay, well, you can believe this is the way it works, but I'm going to give you real life points about how it, in the notes about how it really works and stuff. And although I'm judging you, I'm also trying to help you. So yeah.
We have a similarity. My upbringing, again, my parents were hardworking and they always worked, which I admired that from them. I always felt like I was neglected somehow because they were always working, and I was like, where's my time? So I made up my own time, and I made up my own things to do, and I got creative. Some of them were not very good, but I was creative enough to, as an adult, I can look back and go, maybe I shouldn't have put myself in that situation when I was 12 years old.
Yeah.
But I learned a lesson, and a lot of times I got into trouble and got myself out of trouble because I was creative and resourceful, which as an adult has helped me out. And sometimes I get frustrated with people when I'm like, where is your common sense? Like, no, like that doesn't, like, do not put the fork in the socket. That's not a good thing. Like, what made you think that's going to work? And I'm I can relate to the fact that I always tell people, look, I'm Catholic, so I'm silently judging you, but I'm going to show you how to do this better and easier.
Yep.
I'm going to teach you how I do it, see if it works for you. but I'm going to silently judge you.
Judge you, yes.
Usually people laugh, and I'm like, no, I'm serious. I am judging you right now. This will determine whether I bring you back to work with me or not. So, what? And again, we don't have to go too much.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think was the hardest? Because you talk about being cynical. What do you think was your hardest lesson about life growing up?
Oh man, wow. So from the age of 12 to, I think most of my adult life, I was very alone, and I spent a lot of time by myself. I understood independence, and I'll give you I'll give you some context to that, but I had to learn emotional independence, and I learned it very quickly, but I think there's a trade-off to everything. And I think it was a very difficult lesson to learn because humans are not meant to be isolated or alone. So I learned rejection very young, not just from a professional standpoint, but from a personal standpoint. And I was rejected by my mom very young, and my dad died very young. And so I kind of grew up in this matrix of a sorts, because I knew my entire family on both sides, but I was very by myself. I was very siloed, like in my own lane, and but not in a like we see that as a very aspirational thing. So I did not understand. It's always been very difficult for me to forge close relationships, to have friends, to have long-term friends, or not circumstantial friends or conditional friendships or relationships. And whereas most people, maybe in your family, I don't know, and I'm not going to assume that, a lot of families are very close knit, and no matter what, they stick together. My situation in particular wasn't like that. And so it was always very confusing for me to see people put themselves through a lot of pain in the name of family when I didn't, have that luxury or that privilege. And I don't know if I ever really wanted it, but because I also saw the freedom that it gave me to do whatever I wanted to do. But it also made it very difficult because there was just me. And that was a big lesson. I think it's a reoccurring lesson that I've learned throughout my life. And I try to stay more on the positive side of it because it has afforded me a lot of opportunity and experiences that a lot of people don't have, and won't have because of the emotional obligations to family and social circles and things like that. But on the other side, I've grown to be very, very comfortable with kind of being by myself, and that's been, I think that's been a ongoing, very painful lesson because it's just not natural.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. My older sister is 9 years older than me. So growing up, she was a teenager before I was even there. And so she had her life, and my sister above that is 21 years older than me.
Oh, wow.
So we each all had, our own childhood per se. So I grew up, again, knowing how to be my parents' word. I was independent. I kind of took care of myself a little bit. But would you agree that people confuse your comfort level of being alone with being lonely?
No.
Okay.
And because people don't know that I am alone, I can see where the external optics look like I have a lot of friends in a very broad social network, and I've got the perfect boyfriend and the perfect life, and and so that it doesn't add, the optics don't reflect that, and I've learned to be very protective of that, because in this industry, optics are everything. And so, and once you're kind of isolated, or you look in some ways vulnerable, like you're alone, or lonely, you are prey, right?
Oh,
So,
wow.
So for me, it's not something I really have to work at. I mean, don't get me wrong, I have a beautiful relationship with my boyfriend, and I love spending time with him, and we live our lives together, and I've got a few really great friends that I am very open to, and I care about, and they care about me, and everything. But I do not make any effort to make it seem more than what it is. It's just that, it's like, if it's photographed, then it happened. If it's not photographed or on camera, then it didn't happen. And so when you look like you're at events all the time, and you look like you're, around all these people, it gives the illusion that, man, you're just around people all the time. When really, I'm a lazy bum that likes to stay at home and like lay on the couch and watch TV with my boyfriend, and eat. That's what I like to do. So yeah, I think, optics are a very powerful thing. And I think most of the people that we see, we don't really know. And including myself, you see me on Instagram or YouTube or, online or, wherever. And that only gives you the feeling of knowing me personally, but not the reality of it. So I don't think people, really know.
That's pretty interesting. I guess it is kind of based on the industry that you're in, or the kind of, I have to say the word image, the kind of image that you need to portray for especially when you are your own brand, you have to be able to, okay, this is my brand.
Yeah.
I'm in my line. It's about social. I'm a social media guy. Mm-hmm. I'm also a spiritual energy worker, and I do a lot of interviews. So I have to connect with people. So I have to let people know, hey, I'm fully rounded. So it's not uncommon that on my page you'll see one day when I'm like, hey, I'm at this event interviewing people, and then the next day I'm like, oh, I'm at home doing an interview, and then the next day I'm like, okay, I'm super bummed out today. I'm not in the mood because I suffer from depression. And so being honest helps people know that I'm approachable. And, but then I spent this whole weekend alone. I was home alone Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, only because I had to work yesterday. Otherwise, I would have spent the whole day. I'm in my pajamas right now. I'll confess to people. I'm interviewing in my pajamas because everything got canceled except for this interview. So I'm going back to bed as soon as we're done. I'm like, I'm done.
You know what? I am working from home today. I am also in my pajamas.
Yes.
And and I do have to film from home. I am going to film from home for my blog, my YouTube channel, but I am working from home today, and I'm not feeling that great, so I am going to be as comfortable as possible. And my boyfriend, who I know was in here, he's still here. A minute ago, we were home.
In the background, yeah.
Yeah, we were home all weekend. I don't even know if we went. We did go out to dinner on Friday, and then I think we did like chores on Saturday, like grocery shopping or something. But yeah, that's all. That's all we did.
I'll congratulate you, girl. This is a hey girl moment. Like I saw him in the background taking out the trash and being clean out. I'm like, you go, girl. I'm going to be on an interview. You in the kitchen.
Yeah, he's awesome. He's awesome. So, that's all him. That's not me. I don't have to, honestly, I don't have to ask, he's just who he is. Just great.
That's awesome. What's his name? May we ask?
His name is Lance.
Lance, well, kudos to Lance for being so helpful around the house. Like, let the woman work. Let the woman work. I'm like,
he's we are very, very, very fortunate that we get to spend. It's Monday. We're both home, and we're both gonna work from home and hang out a little bit and it's really great that I have a partner that we can be together all day. That doesn't that's rare and it's really very supportive. I think the optics again, with social media and especially amongst women is that I'm going to put on my high heels, get my latte and hustle and grind. And that is the image that's portrayed about what it takes to be a successful woman. And it's really a lie. And it's really a lie. And I contribute to that too. I contribute to that narrative in my own way as well. And it's not always positive or helpful, when you don't want to keep up that momentum or that pace all the time. It's not humanly possible to keep up with that. So some days, I'm at home doing this and there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with taking a day off. There's nothing wrong with relaxing and spending time with your partner. Everything is not about grinding, and it's not mentally healthy. It's not physically healthy. But that's you go open up your Instagram and go to any kind of like female geared entrepreneurial feed, and is what you're gonna get is, when I wake up, when I open my eyes and put my feet on the floor, the devil says, "Oh no, she's up," or when I no, I'm serious. Yeah, I'm serious. This is the thing. No days off, what?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think it's crossed borders too now, because as a gay man, especially now, a lot of gay men are like, I can do everything and I've got the world in my hands. And,
yeah, it's the new woman, like literally it is like, yeah.
Pride and equal, everybody's equal and I get that. And I think it's great, but
mm-hmm.
I tell people, I like half of the crazy crap that I do and half of the things that I get involved in are because I have a great boyfriend that encourages me and puts up with my craziness. And I always, I put this example to people. I'm like a tetherball. I'm like, it's like, you can sling me, but I will always come back. I will always come back because
mm-hmm.
I count on him to be there to catch me when I'm tired or when I feel broken, or like you were saying earlier, when you go out to auditions, I'm an actor too. So going out to auditions or going out to pitch ideas and people say no. And I'm like,
yeah,
no.
Yeah.
Like, don't worry. I'm going to order your dim sum.
That's awesome. Yeah.
Let me order delivery and I got you. And here's your bottle of Mexican Coke and a cookie. And I'm like, oh, thank you, honey. So I don't believe that independence equals being alone. I believe that independent is being able to go stand on yourself and going, if things should happen, I can handle myself. I can take care of myself. But I'm also independent enough to know that I can use somebody there to hold me when I need it. Does that make sense?
It's very true. Very true. And I think, I don't know how it is for gay men, and I won't try to even imagine, but we were just having a conversation, I think like over the weekend. It's kind of spread over the weekend about, because I didn't participate in the Women's March. And this is the second year that I haven't participated. And I've been very shameless about acknowledging that I'm not participating. And my boyfriend said something that really was like, oh wow, that's actually very true. The Women's March is a privileged woman's picnic. It is a white woman's block party. And even though it's supposed to be more this year, more intersectionally diverse, I guess. I don't even know if that's a proper collective term, a phrase. What it feels like and what the optics looks like is, so they diversified the panel or the speakers, but the audience that's there is all privileged women that can afford to take off Saturday and afford to get a caretaker or take their kid. Sorry about that. Afford to take their kids and go. But the women that really need the encouragement or the empowerment or the know-how are, stuck wherever they are with no cars. They have to work. They can't take a day off. They have, kids. They can't afford to take all the kids on the train or whatever it is. And my boyfriend made a comment. He goes, breaking through the ceiling is great for women, but where's the floor for men? Where's how far down do men go? Because there's the same women that are, this is actually very interesting. The same women that are, complaining about, I have a lot of girlfriends that are like this. And I don't know if there's ever been the thought process behind at all. The same women that are wanting to break through a glass ceiling are also the same women that are wondering, how come I don't have a boyfriend? How come I can't find a man? How come all men are shit? How come, this about men, that about men? And I want a man that, is more successful than me, but I want to break the glass ceiling and I want to be more successful than men. And I want a man that takes care of me so I don't have to work, but I want a 5-bedroom house and I want this expensive diamond ring and I want to be able to shop whenever I want and I want to go to yoga in the middle of the day. But I want to do, and it's like those two narratives do not go together.
Right.
You cannot have women breaking the glass ceiling and exceeding over men and then expect to have a man that is going to provide and take care of you.
Right.
So what fucking narrative is it? What do you want? Yeah. What are we saying here? So it's very, very true. And people tend to think that I am very pro-female. I'm not an anti-feminist at all. I just don't think that the real definition of being a feminist is what we are exercising today. And I don't think that the way we're looking at equality is proper. I am not equal to my boyfriend. I am not equal to the next woman or my girlfriend or you or a gay man or a transgender woman. I am not equal and I don't want to be equal. I want to be individually appreciated and respected for who I am, what my skills and talents are, and respected and understood for what they are not. So when you democratize everyone's skill level and everyone's talent, you end up with having a bunch of drones. You end up having something like North Korea, where it doesn't matter who you are or how many people are there because they're all interchangeable because they're all the same. Right. And that is not really what people want. And I think that if we ever got that, we would regret it.
Yeah.
So, yeah. That's my soapbox for today. Sorry.
I will, I'll pat you on the back for that. I've had this conversation with some of my girlfriends, and they were like, equal rights for women, and I want to be equal, and I don't need to be treated like a little damsel in distress, and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, you go, girl. Like, good for you. And then they'll come back from a date and go, oh my God, chivalry is dead.
Yeah. You know what? Have you ever been treated like a damsel in distress? It's great.
I'm like,
I'm
like, you know what? Maybe I'm a woman in disguise somehow, because I dig it when a man take me out to dinner and go, I got this. Yes,
right?
Sir,
Me too.
I'm a starving actor. You want to pay for dinner? You pay for dinner.
Right? I'm the same way.
and I'll have another dessert to take home with me. Thank you.
I am the same way. I am. And you know what? Nothing is better. I was married before, and I was the breadwinner. I was unintentionally, you know what? So here's the funny thing. I never wanted to be the breadwinner in a relationship or to be the strong, independent woman that doesn't need no man but has a man child, right? Did not want to be that. But I found myself in that situation. And when I found myself in that situation, I said, okay, fair enough. I will give this a shot. I need to understand the other side, or I'm interested in understanding what my thoughts about this really are. Maybe I like it because I do like business. I do like to work. I'm very involved in my projects and in my work. So maybe this is something I like and I don't know I'm going to like it. And it is exhausting. I felt very unappreciated, and not to say that every woman feels this way in this situation, but I know I did. Felt very unappreciated. I felt like I wasn't respected by my peers. And even though women say one thing, we do another, to each other. We shame each other. When we do, if we do and if we don't, doesn't matter. We find a reason to shame each other. And I realized, I said, okay, this is not what we are intending this to be. We think this is what we want, but this is not really what we want. And I think that when we get it, I think that this whole women's movement is something that's going to come to fruition. And I think a lot of women are going to have buyer's remorse. Because the more biologically, and there's a lot of scientific data to back this up, a lot of women that are unable to conceive, one of the number one things doctors tell them is take time off. You cannot get pregnant you probably can't get pregnant because you're too stressed. Your body is stressed. And once women realize that, I'm working 80 hours a week or 90 hours a week, and, I can't, because a lot of women want kids, they want the whole package. And they realize that it's going to be like, we're not going to need to have, what is that movie or the series with the women with the red, Maid's Tale? We're not going to need that because we're going to do it to ourselves. Maid's Tales or something. Yeah, we don't need it because we're going to do it to us.
I think there's a way of having everything in the world. I mean, I think there is a way of having everything you want. You just can't have a lot of it
at the same time.
Yeah.
It's very true.
As I was saying earlier, I'm an energy worker, and I always tell my clients there has to be a balance in the world. There has to be happy, sad, laughter, and tears, not necessarily at the same time, but there's going to be a balance. That's how things work out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I think that in life, it's always like that. And I've realized that transferring that, what you just said, to my life, my boyfriend and I are only a year apart. He's a year older than me. And we both wanted children at some point in our lives. And we still talked about that. But then we also like to travel and we like to run around. And because I work on contract and for myself, and so does he, we can take 2 weeks off and go to Florida if we wanted to, or go down to Texas to see my family for a month for Christmas. And we're like, if we have a kid, we can't do that unless we're going to homeschool. There's no way we can just say, all right, Johnny, because I guess my kid's name's Johnny. All right, Johnny, we're going to grandma's for a month. Like, get your stuff together. Or, hey, we're going to Florida for a weekend. And like, there's no way you can do that. And then even having a pet, we're like, oh, we want a dog. And I'm like, what are we going to do with the dog?
We have the same dilemma. We don't want kids, but we talked about a pet, and it's the same thing. What are we going to do? with pet, and then it's a whole nother consideration. Now it's just us, and when we decide to do something, we are making a decision together, just the two of us, and that's that. But yeah, kids and pets is a whole nother thing.
So we kind of talked a lot. We haven't even talked about the project that we were in, but
yeah, I know.
But I'm enjoying the conversation. Sorry, people messaging when I'm working. But we kind of gotten to the point where we do our words of wisdom.
Mm-hmm.
So before we talk about the project that we were in, what words of wisdom could you share with our listeners today?
Think about the life that you want to create very carefully and reevaluate it on an ongoing basis. I feel like, and maybe one would even say that from the outside, that I've lived a few different versions of my life. And each time, and as I've reevaluated the life that I wanted to live, each time that I've made a transition in my life, I've gotten better at curating the future life that I want, because I've been able to think about it more thoroughly, or have more data points about what that life would look like or be like. And I think the reason why so many people end up not unhappy and unfulfilled is because they don't have all the information that they need to make a decision about their future, about the life that they want to live. It's not about people think about what kind of job they want or what kind of house they want. They don't think about what kind of life they want. And I think if you start there, what kind of life do I want? Then you can build the kind of job you want, the kind of house you want, the kind of partner you want, that whole thing. So that would be my words of wisdom.
Awesome. Let me just say this before we go into the next part of questions. I am blown away. I mean, I was silently judging, and I'll admit it. I always like to admit when I have some preconceived notion. I try not to, but I am one of those people that are like models. Okay.
Yeah. Me too. Yeah.
She's pretty. Stay pretty.
Yeah.
But your wisdom and your insight into things is so refreshing and so just like inspiring. I'm like, wow, like this girl, like when are you running for politics? Like when do I?
Not. But thank you.
But it's really cool. I'm really impressed, and I'm so glad that Brian connected us, because this is really cool.
Yeah, me too.
I even think that you're going to have to come back on the show another time, or even be part of one of my panel shows.
Sure, absolutely. I would love to.
But we'll talk about that a little bit. But let's talk a little bit, because we kind of touched on it at the beginning, that the project that we both worked on, and I've already sent you the link. I was on my phone sending you the link. So
okay.
I sent you an email with the link that I got. And for the people listening going, what? I'll post it so you guys can look at it. But this was a project about alcoholism, and my audience knows about me. I was an alcoholic and a drug addict, and I've been clean and sober over 10 years now.
Congratulations.
Thank you. June 21st is my AA birthday, so this year will be 11 years. But you mentioned that although you are not an alcoholic or drug addict, you have knowledge of it because of the environment of work.
Yeah.
I don't want to say environment because people are going to think it's family, but because of work. How did you stay out of that circle?
Being dumb and naive. No, and very, seriously, I was oblivious for so many years, and to the point where I would be at a shoot and everyone else would like, it'd be like lunchtime or something or a break, and everyone would disappear into like the bathroom or the somewhere, the hallway, I don't know, somewhere. And I would be sitting there wondering where the fuck everybody went. Like, I just, I was, it just was not on my radar at all. And although in mass media, you know, you had like Kate Moss with cocaine and, you know, a lot of allegations of other models and stuff, I didn't even know what to look for, to be honest. And I don't even think I would have cared because I was very into in my own head. And, one of the things that I was into, like running, I was into what I was into. I was into makeup. I was into running. I was into some of the books, sometimes books that I was reading. I was into like really just my own world. And so anything outside of that really wasn't interesting to me. And I often came across, and not that, and other models I'm sure do too, but I often came across as very flighty because I was very, you know, tunnel vision, about what I wanted to do and what my identity was. So because there was a lot of, you know, homosexuality around me too. I mean, the fashion industry is very, flamboyant and free spirited, but I didn't even know like who was gay and who wasn't.
What?
And nor did I really care.
Wait a minute. There's
yeah.
people and
What? I know. In fashion? What? I didn't know and I didn't care. And it wasn't out of disrespect. It was just like, that's their business. I don't know how, I honestly did not know how it worked. Was like, I know, I'm pretty sure I'm straight. And so that is something that I don't need to concern myself with because I have enough with figuring out myself. So I just did not know. And it wasn't within my radar to try to figure it out. And also I learned very young that I did not like alcohol as that much. I had alcohol around me and, or had some exposure to alcohol. And what I didn't know was that I could not handle even wine or two sips of wine. I was already warm on the inside. And, I did not like the feeling of not being in control. So I'd always been a control person. And if I couldn't control what was around me, I could control myself. And I didn't like the fact that with alcohol, it made me not feel like I could control myself. And so I figured anything else beyond that was not going to work for me. And that's how I've been pretty much my entire life. Now I can handle my alcohol and I do enjoy, a whiskey. But it's, you know, very limited and rare that I have it. Yeah, so I just didn't know, but as I got older and more experience and broader, mind-wise, I realized that, you know, alcoholism is a big problem in the modeling industry. Substance abuse is a big problem in the modeling industry. And, in the position that I am in to talk about it and to contribute to that conversation, I realized why a lot of those things happen and why they are there in the modeling industry. And they're put there a lot of times by the gatekeepers. So by the agents, by the managers, by the casting people, by the photographers. And a lot of girls don't have the same judgment or the same narrow-minded focus that I did, or self-absorbed focus that I did at that age. And so they want to please people. Right. And they want to please, you know, they want to please other people because they want people to like them. And it's not so much about liking me to get more work. It's about liking me, in general. And I never had that. I think that's something that saved me from a lot of, pain and negative experiences. I never cared about people that liked me or didn't like me, because I grew up in an environment where I was not liked. And so anybody in the fashion industry or, modeling that didn't like me, I was like, I'm cute anyway, and someone else somewhere else is going to like me.
Right.
And if you don't like me, I like myself, and I'm gonna take my own damn pictures and make my own damn magazine. So I never sought that approval, but I understand why girls do seek that approval and why they do get involved in drugs and alcohol to get that approval.
And this will be for another time because there's going to be a second part. This is too interesting. But drugs, alcohol, pills, eating disorders, sexual activities. I mean, unfortunately, it's all tied in, doesn't it? I mean, it's all delivered in this package, and then it's up to you whether it's like a goodie bag of bad things. Like, it's up to you whether you dive into it or not. Am I wrong?
Yeah. I think so. And especially when it's in an environment where you're set up to seek other people's approval. Right. And the way that the modeling industry has been set up for a long time is that the people at the bottom, which are the models, are set up to seek the approval of everyone at the tiers above. And they're the ones that decide on who stops and who goes. And so it's very destructive in that sense. And a lot of systems are set up that way, but this is one particularly that I can speak and advocate for.
Now, one of my last questions, we hear a lot lately about this turnaround where people or magazines are not wanting the retouching, the photoshopping. They want a more natural look. They want something that resembles the average normal person. What's your take on that?
I think in industry terms, what that means is, we went through a phase where everything was highly retouched. It was highly glossy, highly retouched, and to the point where it looked fake. So I think in industry terms, what that means is that we're going to make it a little bit more real, but people don't really want to look at real. So we're just going to remove a layer or two of the retouching. But where we were in terms of retouching was so extreme that it looked like plastic. And so if you scale that back, a layer or two, you're still looking at a highly retouched image. It's just more digestible than where we were. But I think that if you put most people on a magazine or most people in front of a camera with lights and everything, people don't want to see what they really look like. And models, I don't. I mean, I know what I really look like, and I like the retouched version of me better. I don't want to look plastic, but I do want to look better. And models feel that way. And if you want to keep the perception of what the difference between in an average woman and a model and what it means to be on a magazine, if you want to keep that prestige intact, then you have to keep the retouching and all those things, all those layers intact. You can't take away all those layers and have a raw image and expect people to still buy into the ideas of beauty. Once you take all those layers away, you don't have anything anymore. You don't have a hierarchy. You don't have anything aspirational. You have your neighbor and your peer that looks just like you, and you're not going to sell magazines or anything else.
Because I definitely am a diva. So if I go, because I've been doing a lot, ever since I started getting more involved in my advocacy, I'll go to a photo shoot for a magazine, or I'll go to an interview or something, and I'll ask, will you have hair and makeup available? And they're like, do you need it? I'm like, yes.
Yes.
Yes, you're taking my photo. I need makeup. Although I do have pretty flawless skin, I will say that.
Hey.
I do not look my age, and my hair looks pretty cool. This is post-cancer hair. And it looks pretty awesome.
It does.
Thank you. And this is morning hair. I still haven't really combed my hair today.
Let me tell you, I got up this morning. I was like, if the one thing I do today is this interview, and hopefully I get to filming and I have some emails to take care of and stuff, but I am going to do my hair and my makeup and at least look good from here. There's no camera. I am not going to be in front of any camera. I got my light set up behind here. Why do you think it's so evenly lit?
I was going to say, because if people are probably not going to see the video, but
I wasn't sure, and I wasn't taking any chances.
Yeah,
so
they're going to see your side, not my side.
Yeah,
your side is really lit, and my side is so dark because I'm sitting in my living room in the dark, and the curtains are still closed. And but yeah, there was one more question I was going to say. Do you believe, because now that we talked about the retouching, and yes, I'm with you. I understand that no matter how natural they want to make the magazines and the promo ads look, there's still going to be a level. But you think that us normal humans, non-models, we still want to look up to somebody who's unattainable?
Yes. That in our society is the bar. In most societies, that is the bar, is unattainable beauty. And this is actually, so this is how we categorize models. And also this is how we categorize celebrity and celebrity image as well. What is accessible, and what is unattainable. So there is accessible beauty. So in terms of modeling, which is any kind of model that you would see in a catalog or in a Target advertisement or something like that. And then you have unattainable beauty, and that is like a Calvin Klein ad or a really high level prestige fragrance or, Dior or high fashion. Those are considered unattainable. So in all levels. So it's unattainable in economics. It's unattainable in being that thin. It's unattainable in looking that perfect or whatever, whatever it may be. So, and then attainable is, if I buy that product, I can get one step closer to that. It's accessible to me. If I work at it, I can be there. I can get there. 24-hour fitness is attainable fitness. Equinox is unattainable fitness, right? So it's prestige. You pay more to be in that elite group. And you also have to, in order to be there, you have to work harder, but it's all a perception. And that exists not in our culture. It exists in Europe. I mean, that's why you have the monarchy. That is the exact setup is what's attainable and what's not attainable. You have the people on the inside, and then you have a big ass wall and a big ass gate, and you have the people on the outside. And you have it in Asia. You have it with colorism. You have all countries export their fair-skinned images, their fair-skinned beauty. But if you go to China, most people are darker than the advertisements that you see of Chinese celebrities or Chinese beauty, models or beauty queens or whatever. Same thing in the Philippines, same thing in Korea, same thing in Japan, same thing in India, even in various countries in Africa, same thing. What we export as the idea of beauty and what is achievable and what isn't is always going to be there because it's already ingrained in most citizens or most people that they don't want to see themselves. They want to see something better.
Yeah, because even in Mexico, I remember growing up as a kid, and when we go to Mexico, the commercials were always these tall, beautiful, blondish looking Hispanics. And I was like, they don't look like me. Like that. There's nobody blue-eyed in my family. We're all short and dark. Like
they're the Germans that live in Venezuela, right? Yeah.
What are you talking about? I don't know.
Yeah.
But yes, very good point. And we're running out of time. But man, I next time we've got to do a coffee interview where we can do a chat.
I am totally down with that.
Because and I was always going to push it today to be like, hey, can we meet up instead?
Yeah.
But I'm so glad we did this in the pajamas and
it was great. It's great. Yeah.
Thank you so much for being on the show.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. I'm glad we could work this out.
Yeah, and again, I don't normally have expectations about my guests and where conversation is going, but this definitely went in a totally different direction than I expected, and I'm so glad it did because you you opened my eyes to a couple of things, and I'm always excited when my guests can make me think, and because I'm hoping that my listeners walk away with that same thought, like, oh wow, that's not the concept I had about modeling or females or whatever. So thank you so much. Don't hang up. Let me say goodbye to my guys.
Okay.
Everybody listening, I hope you've enjoyed this conversation as much as I have. If you like this, go to abnormalentertainment.com and check out all of the shows on the network. You'll find other shows that you like. If you'd like to follow me, go to Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, or YouTube and look for Little Mexican or Little Mexican Productions. You can also find me on my new show, Zodiacs and Candles, which airs every other Monday on Facebook Live. So go to look for the page on Facebook. If you're into horoscopes, card readings, intuitive readings, go check that out. I'm sure you'll enjoy it. For now, I want to say thank you again to my producer, Mr. Kevin Warriors. Thank you, sir, and inviting you all to check us out. For now, this is Daniel Garza saying, hey, put it together.
Subscribe to Put It Together on iTunes, Stitcher, and at abnormalentertainment.com/putittogether. Find Put It Together on Facebook and tweet Daniel at Lil Messican, LILMESICAN. And for more podcasts, comics, books, movies, and more, head to abnormalentertainment.com.
You've been listening to the Abnormal Entertainment Network.